She was 6 years old when her mother tried to drown her. Not out of hatred, out of love. And she was 20 when she made the river itself bow to her command. This is the story of Zikora, the girl with the twisted leg who became more powerful than kings, and the wicked aunt who saved her life only to steal it in a different way. But before we begin, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt invisible? Useful but not valued? Essential but not appreciated? Have you ever been the reason someone else succeeded but got none of the credit? Then this story is for you. This is The Fisherman's Daughter, and I promise you, you've never heard anything like it. Where the great river Osimiri meets the endless ocean, there is a place the fishermen call the mouth of truth. They say the water there has a memory. Every promise made, every lie told, every life lost, every destiny waiting to be born. This is where Adaize brought her 6-year-old daughter to die. Zikora didn't understand why they were at the river before dawn. She didn't understand why her mother was crying. She didn't understand why the old men with their stern faces were watching from the shore. All she knew was that Mama's hands were shaking as she lifted her. "Mama, why are we here?" Adaize couldn't answer. How do you tell your child you are about to kill her? "Forgive me, my precious girl," she whispered, stepping deeper into the water. "Forgive me. In the next life, I will find you and give you the childhood I could not give you in this one." The water was up to Adaize's waist now. One more step. One more step and Zikora would slip beneath the surface. One more step and the law would be satisfied. The law, that cruel, ancient law that said imperfect children of the royal house must be given to the river. Because Zikora's left leg had withered, it twisted inward, making her limp, making her unsuitable to be a chief's daughter, making her, in the eyes of tradition, an abomination. Adaize took that final step. "Stop!" A woman came running down the riverbank, her wrapper flying behind her like wings. Ebele, Adaize's younger sister. "Sister, what are you doing?" Adaize sobbed. "You cannot interfere. The law." "But I am not interfering with the law," Ebele said, breathing hard, her eyes fierce. "The law says a deformed child of the royal house cannot remain in the palace. It says she must be given to the river, but it doesn't say she must die." The elders murmured. This was unexpected. "What are you saying?" Adaize whispered, hardly daring to hope. "Give her to me," Ebele said. "I married a fisherman. I live in the fishing village downriver. If Zikora comes to live with me, she is no longer in the palace. She is no longer a chief's daughter. She becomes a fisherman's niece. The law is satisfied. She lives, but she's removed, invisible." The eldest elder stroked his beard, considering. "It is unconventional, but technically it satisfies the requirements. The child would be dead to the royal house. She could never return, never claim her birthright, never even speak her true name." "I accept," Adaize said immediately. Anything so she lives." Adaize waded back to shore and knelt before her daughter. She looked into Zikora's confused, frightened face, those eyes that trusted her completely, and she lied. "Zikora, you are going to stay with Auntie Ebele for a while. You'll be a good girl, won't you?" "But Mama, I want to stay with you." "Listen to me." Adaize gripped her small shoulders, her voice urgent, desperate. "Remember, you are a chief's daughter. No matter what happens, no matter what they call you, no matter how they treat you, remember your blood. Survive. Survive and become someone they cannot ignore." She kissed her daughter's forehead, and then she handed her to Ebele and walked away. "Mama!" Zikora screamed, reaching out. "Mama! Mama, come back!" But Adaize didn't look back, because if she had looked back, if she had seen her daughter's face, she would never have had the strength to let go. Zikora watched her mother disappear into the morning mist, and at 6 years old, she learned a truth that would shape the rest of her life. Sometimes, the people who love you most are the ones who hurt you deepest.
Auntie Billy's home was nothing like the palace. It was a small hut on stilts, where the smell of dried fish and salt water was so strong it made Zikora's eyes water. Ebele's husband, Uncle Dubem, was kind, weathered and tired, but kind. They had 4 children, 3 daughters, Amaka, Chinwe, and Obiageli, and 1 son, Chima. "This is Zikora," Ebele announced. "She is my sister's child. She will live with us now. You will treat her as family." But even as she said the words, something flickered in Ebele's eyes, something that looked like resentment. For the first year, Aunt Ebele was kind enough. She fed Zikora, clothed her, gave her a mat to sleep on. But gradually, so gradually, Zikora almost didn't notice. Things changed. It started with comments. "Careful, Zikora. Oh, wait, I forgot. You can't move quickly with that leg, can you? Girls, come help with the nets. Not you, Zikora. You'd only slow us down. What dowry will a crippled girl bring? We feed her, but what return will we see?" Then the comments became actions. While her cousins learned to paddle canoes and cast nets, valuable skills for marriageable girls, Zikora was left behind to do the dirty work, gutting fish until her hands smelled like death, mending nets until her fingers bled, smoking the catch over fires that made her eyes stream. While her cousins wore decent wrappers, Zikora wore rags. While her cousins sat by the fire laughing and eating bowls of spicy pepper soup with fresh tilapia, Zikora sat in the shadows. Her portion was always the same: cold, gritty gari and the charred heads of fish that were too burnt to sell at the market. But even as she chewed the bitter scraps, she watched the way the smoke rose from the hearth, learning how the wind moved, knowledge she would one day use to sail while others remained docked. By the time Zikora was 13, she understood the truth. Aunt Ebele had saved her life, but Aunt Ebele also resented her. And one night, Zikora learned why. She was supposed to be asleep, but through the thin walls of the hut, she heard her aunt and uncle talking. 7 years I've been taking care of the chief's cast-off, and what has Adaize sent us? Nothing, not a single carry. Ebele, the girl cannot help. I know she can't help it. That's what makes it worse. She's a constant reminder that my sister lives in a palace while I got fish, that her sons will inherit a kingdom while my son inherits a leaking canoe. You saved that girl's life. And what did it cost me? Everything. I gave up any chance of the chief's favor. The palace sends no support. We feed an extra mouth that contributes nothing because she can't even do a full day's work with that leg. Zikora heard all of this. She didn't cry. She had stopped crying 3 years ago. Instead, she made a decision. Before dawn the next morning, while everyone slept, Zikora limped down to the river's edge. For 7 years, she had watched the fishermen, watched how they read the water, watched how they knew where fish would gather, watched how they walked with the river instead of against it. She had been forbidden from learning. "You will drown," Auntie Billy always said. "Your leg makes you unbalanced. The river doesn't care about your excuses." But Zikora had learned anyway, by watching, by studying, by memorizing every movement. There was an old canoe, abandoned and half buried in mud, too damaged for anyone to bother with. For months, Zikora had been secretly repairing it. Fish oil to waterproof the cracks, palm fronds woven tight to patch the holes, and prayers, so many prayers. Now she would test herself. She dragged the canoe to the water. Her twisted legs screamed in protest, but she ignored it. She pushed off into the pre-dawn darkness. For a terrifying moment, the canoe wobbled. Her weak leg couldn't balance. She was going to capsize. But then, something miraculous happened. On land, her leg was a disability. On water, it didn't matter. The river held her, balanced her. The canoe responded to her paddle strokes, not her legs. Here, on the water, she wasn't broken. She was free. Zikora laughed. For the first time in 7 years, she laughed, a sound of pure, unbridled joy. She paddled out to where the water changed color, where the depths shifted, where the fish gathered. She had made a net from scraps, ugly, amateur work. She cast it anyway and pulled up 3 fat fish, then 5 more, then 8. By the time the sun rose, painting the sky in gold and crimson, Zikora had caught more than she dared to dream. She paddled back, her heart pounding. Would Auntie Daly beat her, scream at her, punish her for disobedience? She didn't care. For the first time since her mother had given her away, Zikora felt like herself. Auntie Billy was waiting on the shore, arms crossed, face furious. "You disobedient, stupid girl! You could have drowned! You could have—" Then she saw the fish. Her mouth stopped mid-word. Where did you get those?" "I caught them," Zikora said. You caught them by yourself?" Zikora nodded.
Ebele's expression shifted. Anger faded, replaced by something worse, calculation. "How many can you catch?" "I don't know, Auntie. Today I caught 8. Maybe with a better net, better equipment." "You'll go out again tomorrow," Ebele said quickly. "Before dawn. You'll take the good canoe, you'll use your uncle's spare net, and you'll catch as many as you can." "But Auntie, you said I was forbidden." "That was before I knew you had a gift," Ebele said, and her smile was sharp as a knife. "My daughters can't fish like that. They've been trained for years and catch half as much. But you have something special, a blessing from the river spirits who are supposed to take you." She leaned closer. "Here's what will happen. You will fish every day. You will give your catch to me. I will sell it, and in exchange, I will feed you and house you. No one needs to know who's really doing the catching. We'll say it's your uncle or your cousin Chima. No one will believe a crippled girl anyway." Zikora's heart sank. "But Auntie, or," Ebele's voice went ice cold, "or I can send word to the palace that the deformed daughter is still alive, that the law was not truly satisfied, that you should finish what your mother started. Do you understand?" Zikora understood perfectly. She had escaped one prison only to enter another. 7 years passed. Zikora was now 20 years old. Every morning before dawn, she paddled out into darkness. Every morning, she returned with catches that astounded veteran fishermen. "Dubem, how do you do it?" they would ask her uncle. "Your catches have tripled. What's your secret?" Uncle Dubem would mumble something about new techniques and change the subject, guilt eating him alive. The fish Zikora caught made her aunt's family prosperous. They built a bigger house, bought more canoes. Her cousins married well because their dowries were generous. And Zikora, she still slept on a mat on the floor, still ate last, still wore rags. But the river had taught her things. When you spend 7 years on the water, listening to its moods, learning its secrets, you begin to hear things others cannot. Zikora developed an uncanny sense. She could tell when storms were coming days before they arrived. She knew where fish would be before they gathered. She understood currents and tides in ways that seemed almost supernatural. The river spoke to her, and she was listening the day it warned her, "Danger comes, blood in the water, death sailing from upstream. Warn them, warn them." Zikora came back early, her canoe cutting through the water with desperate speed. "Auntie, uncle, everyone!" The village gathered. "There's danger coming," Zikora said, breathing hard. "From upstream, something terrible in the water. We need to pull the canoes onto high ground, warn the fishermen, a storm or worse." "How do you know this?" an elder asked. "The water told me, the way the current moves, the way the fish are behaving." Laughter, cruel, dismissive laughter. The crippled girl thinks she's a diviner now. The water told her. Did the fish have a conversation with you, Zikora? Next, she'll say the rocks speak to her. Even Aunt Ebele, who knew Zikora's skill, was embarrassed. "Stop making a spectacle of yourself," she hissed. "You're humiliating me. Get back to work." "But Auntie, I'm serious." "Enough." Zikora tried to warn others, the fishermen, the boat builders, anyone who would listen. No one did. Who listens to a crippled girl who got fish? That night, Zikora couldn't sleep. The river's warning pulsed in her blood like a second heartbeat. And at midnight, it came. Not a storm, raiders. A neighboring kingdom, jealous of Osimiri's fishing wealth, sent warriors in canoes, under cover of darkness, silent as death, dozens of them. They set fire to the canoes on the beach. They attacked the fishermen's homes. They stole. They burnt. They killed. Zikora woke to screaming. She grabbed her walking stick and limped outside to see the village in flames. Uncle Dubem was fighting 3 men, badly outnumbered, bleeding. Aunt Ebele was trying to shepherd her children to safety, terror on her face. Raiders were everywhere, grabbing women, killing men, burning everything. And Zikora? Zikora did something she had never done before, something she didn't even know she could do. She called the river.
She didn't know how she knew the words. They came from somewhere ancient, somewhere deep, somewhere that remembered her mother's final blessing. Survive, my love. Survive and become someone they cannot ignore. Zikora limped to the water's edge, raised her arms to the sky, and commanded, Osimiri, great river, hear your daughter. I, who was given to your depths, I, who was saved from your embrace, I, who have lived on your waters for 14 years, I call upon the debts between us. Rise, protect your people, drown those who come with murder. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then the river answered. The water surged, rose, impossible, terrifying. It rose like a living wall, 20 feet high, blocking out the moon. The raiders on the beach screamed as the wall of water crashed down on them. It swept them away like insects, dragged them screaming into the depths. The raiders on land ran in absolute terror, abandoning their attack, abandoning their weapons, abandoning everything just to escape. And just as suddenly as it had risen, the water receded to its normal level. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. The entire village stared at Zikora, this limping girl with her twisted leg, standing in the center of the destruction, arms still raised, water dripping from her hair, power radiating from her like heat from a fire. Someone whispered, What are you? Chief Okafo heard about the miracle, the girl who commanded the river, the girl who saved the fishing village from raiders, the girl who had power the kingdom had never seen. He came personally to investigate, traveling downriver with his guards and counselors. The fishing village gathered to greet him. Bring me this girl, the chief commanded. This Zikora, is it? Zikora was brought forward. She hadn't seen her father in 14 years. She was 6 when they took her away. Now she was 20. He didn't recognize her. Why would he? She was supposed to be dead. You called the river, Chief Okafo said. How? I don't know, great chief, Zikora said honestly. The river has always spoken to me. That night it listened. Who are your people? I am the niece of Ebele, wife of Dubem the fisherman. The chief's eyes moved to Ebele, who stood trembling at the edge of the crowd. Ebele, you are the sister of my wife Adaize, are you not? Yes, great chief. And this girl, she is your niece, you say? Yes, great chief. From which sister? Adaize had no other children beside my sons, and he stopped. His face went pale. He looked at Zikora again, really looked. He saw her twisted leg. He saw her age, 20 years. He saw her eyes, her mother's eyes. No, he whispered, it cannot be. Great chief, his counselor asked. 20 years ago, I had a daughter. She was imperfect. The law required we gave her to the river. His voice broke. But there was never a body found. I assumed the river took her quickly. He approached Zikora slowly, like she was a ghost. Tell me true, Ebele. Is this my daughter? Is this Zikora, child of Adaize? Ebele fell to her knees. Yes, great chief. I saved her. I couldn't let her drown. I took her as my own. The chief's face showed a dozen emotions at once. Joy, grief, shame, wonder. My daughter lives. My daughter is a miracle worker. He reached out to embrace her, but Zikora stepped back. I am not your daughter, chief, she said quietly. Your daughter drowned 14 years ago. I am Zikora, the fisherman. That is all I have ever been allowed to be. But you gave me to the river to satisfy a cruel law,
Auntie Billy saved me, yes, but she also enslaved me. For 14 years, I have caught the fish that made her family rich while I slept on the floor and ate scraps. I have been useful but never valued, alive but never free. I used her, Auntie Billy sobbed. I resented her and I used her. I saved her life, but I took it in a different way. Forgive me, forgive me. The chief looked stricken. Then I will make it right. You will return to the palace. You will reclaim your birthright. You will be a chief's daughter again. No. Everyone gasped. What? The chief whispered.
Zikora stood tall, despite her crooked leg. I have been a chief's daughter. It nearly killed me. The law said I was too broken to be royal, so I was thrown away. Now, you discover I have power and suddenly I'm valuable again? No. But you are my daughter. I am the river's daughter, Zikora said fiercely. The river has been more of a parent to me than anyone. It carried me when my leg couldn't. It taught me when no one else would. It answered when I called. I belong to the water, not to the palace. Then what do you want? The chief asked. Zikora thought of all the years of pain, of watching her aunt profit from her labor, of being invisible despite being essential, of being the rejected stone cast aside because she wasn't perfect. She could have revenge now, power, recognition, but the river had taught her something else. I want a new law, she said. I want the law that cast me out to be abolished. No more children thrown away because they are different. No more lives ended because they don't fit someone's idea of perfect. The councillors murmured. That law is ancient, one began. That law is evil, Zikora cut him off. I lived. I thrived. I saved this village. What other gifts have you drowned in your fear of imperfection? The chief looked at his daughter, truly looked at her, perhaps for the first time. You are right, he said quietly. The law will change. I decree it now. No child shall be harmed for the circumstances of their birth. You have my word. And I want protection for workers, Zikora continued. My aunt used me because she could, because I had no voice. I want laws that protect those who cannot protect themselves, that ensure the weak are not exploited by the strong. It will be done. And I want a fleet, Zikora said, a fishing fleet that belongs to the kingdom but employs the fishermen fairly, where the profits are shared, where skill is rewarded regardless of who you are. The chief smiled sadly. You are thinking like a ruler. I am thinking like someone who has been at the bottom, the rejected stone that sees the cracks in the foundation that those at the top never notice. Will you help build this new kingdom? Will you advise me? Will you come home? Zikora looked at the river, her true home. I will advise you, but I will live here on the water. I will be your bridge between the palace and the people, between the land and the river, between what was and what could be. A rejected stone, the chief said softly, that becomes the cornerstone of a new foundation. Yes. And what of your aunt? He looked at Ebele with cold eyes. She saved you, but enslaved you. What justice do you demand? All eyes turned to Zikora. Auntie Belly knelt in the dirt, weeping, awaiting judgment. Zikora remembered 14 years of cruelty, of resentment, of being used. But she also remembered Auntie Belly saved her life when it would have been easier to look away. She will walk the fleet, she said finally. Not as an owner, as a worker. She will learn what it means to labor for another's profit. She will feel what I felt for 7 years, the same number I served her. And after 7 years, if she learns what suffering teaches, if she becomes who she could have been instead of who her jealousy made her, then she will be forgiven fully, and we will be family again. It was mercy. It was justice. It was wisdom. 3 years passed. The kingdom of Osimiri transformed. Chief Okafor, guided by his daughter's counsel, became known as Okafor the Just. The cruel laws were abolished. Workers gained protections. The fishing fleet prospered and its profits were shared fairly. And every morning, the people would see the same sight.
Zikora paddling out onto the river in her canoe, her twisted leg propped against the side, her hands strong and sure on the paddle. The best fisherman in the kingdom, the chief's advisor, the voice of the voiceless, the rejected stone that had become the cornerstone. Children would gather to watch her return with her catch, and she would teach them, especially the children who were different, who were disabled, who were told they couldn't. The land may reject you, she would tell them. People may say you are broken, but find your river. Find the place where your weakness doesn't matter, where your difference becomes your strength. And when you find it, master it so completely that they cannot ignore you. Antebellum walked the fleet as promised, and slowly, painfully she changed, walking beside those she had once looked down upon, earning her bread by her own hands. She learned humility, learned gratitude, learned that saving a life meant nothing if you then stole that life in a different way.
On the day her 7 years ended, she approached Zikora with tears in her eyes. I wasted 14 years resenting you for being my sister's child, for being the chief's daughter, for being a burden. But you were never the burden. My jealousy was. My bitterness was. You were always a gift, and I was too blind to see it. I know, Zikora said simply. Can you forgive me? Zikora looked at this woman who had saved her and enslaved her, who had been both her rescue and her prison. I forgave you 3 years ago, she said. I was just waiting for you to forgive yourself. They embraced, and 14 years of pain began, finally, to heal. Zikora never married. The river is my husband, she would joke, and she is a jealous wife. She lived to be 70 years old, and in that time, she transformed not just Osimiri, but 5 neighboring kingdoms. She taught sustainable fishing practices that honored the river. She created trade routes that brought prosperity. She trained a generation of fishermen, men and women, strong and disabled, royal and common, teaching them that skill, not birth, determined worth. And once, when another kingdom threatened war, she paddled out alone to meet their war canoes. She raised her arms, she called the river, and the river rose in a wall so high it blocked out the sun. The enemy fleet turned back without a single arrow fired. After that, no one threatened Osimiri. When she died, they didn't bury her. They returned her to the river, as she had requested, with a ceremony that lasted 7 days. And they say, though who can verify such things, that on foggy mornings, fishermen still sometimes see her. A woman in a canoe, one leg twisted, hands sure and strong, paddling through the mist. She waves, and those who wave back always have good luck with their catch that day. 100 years after her death, the law of Zikora spread across the continent. No child shall be harmed for the circumstances of their birth. No worker shall be exploited for their vulnerability. No person shall be judged worthless because they are different. The stone the builders reject may be the cornerstone they need. Listen to the river. It remembers everything. And mothers throughout the land would tell their children, especially their daughters, especially their different ones, you are a chief's daughter whether anyone knows it or not. You are royalty in your bones. If the land rejects you, find your river, master it, and when you speak with the authority of true skill, even kingdoms will listen. This is the story of Zikora, the girl who was supposed to drown, the rejected stone who became the cornerstone. Remember her. Remember that those the world throws away often carry the greatest gifts. Remember that disability is not inability. It's just a different ability waiting for the right place to shine. Remember that the people who seem weakest often become the strongest. Remember that the river remembers everything. And if you ever feel invisible, undervalued, exploited, or cast aside, remember Zikora. Find your river, master your craft,
and rise so powerfully that the world has no choice but to see you. The rejected stone becomes the cornerstone, always. If this story meant something to you, like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. And subscribe for more stories like this. Until we meet again, stay safe, stay kind, and remember, every action has an echo.